the Profits on Purpose podcast, where we explore the journeys of purpose-driven founders and the financial strategies that have helped them thrive. Discover how their values have fueled their success and how smart decisions have turned impact into income. Guys, I'm your host. My name is Nate Littlewood, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. In today's episode, I'm joined by Khushboo Saraf, who is the founder and CEO of Lattooland. Khushboo started her career working in finance with stints at Morgan Stanley and Citigroup, then spent about 4 years working at Amazon in product-related roles, before she started her children's toy brand, Lattooland, which we'll be talking a little bit more about today. Anyway, Khushboo, welcome to the channel. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, Nate, for the introduction. Thank you for having me over.
Of course. Well, Khushboo, from what I understand, you had a pretty good job at Amazon and probably a fairly stable paycheck. Based on our previous conversation, you also had you're a fairly new mother. Most people would have probably just stayed put in that situation. What was it that inspired you to go and start a hardware business in the middle of COVID?
Oh, takes me down the memory lane. To be honest, this is not something that was so pre-planned. As a new mother, I was just searching for toys for my kids, something to calm him down, something to help him engage, especially in the screen-free activities. It's COVID time going on. You all want the screen-free activities, you're inbound and so on. And in India market, I couldn't find the sensory toys. And that time my child had this habit of taking everything in the mouth. So I was looking for real safe toys that even if it takes into mouth, does not create a problem. And that is where, as any mom would do, I just created something for my kid. So it was just, I was creating for my kid. And in the process, I realized that this is actually a gap in the market that I was filling. So I come from a business family. That bug of entrepreneurship was always running in my blood, I would say. But, everything kind of connected together. My entrepreneurship bug, I would say, my love for art and craft, my motherhood, my job experience, my management experience, everything kind of came together, and that is how Lattooland was formed. So it was it's not just a business, it's like purpose driven, something passion driven, something that I wanted to really create for parents around. So yeah.
Amazing. So when it comes to child's toys and them putting things in their mouth, is it about microplastics or chemicals or something else? Like what are the main hazards when it comes to children putting that sort of thing in their mouth?
A lot of things, you're right. Microplastics, chemicals, all of them. In fact, the choking hazard as well. So when you create something for the kids, one has to be age specific. Secondly, it has to be development specific. Something, of course, as any mother would want. But, when it comes to food for the child, we as mothers or as parents, we're so careful of giving just organic products to the kids. We will hunt down the market and get the best product. But when it comes to toys, we really don't have that control because kids have that habit of exploring through their mouth. So, kids need the safe toys, and as parents, I think we need the safe toys so we can be at peace.
Yeah, totally. Well, you've started this business in India, but you're now based in the US. And so you've got kind of an interesting cross-continental perspective on things here. What is one cultural or operational difference that you've observed between India and the US that you think people don't talk about enough?
Very interesting question. I think India, I've seen, is a very relationship-driven economy. Most of our contracts, most of our conversations happen over tea, which is chai, the Indian tea, So, yeah, if you have to do something, you can call up the person, get the things done. It's a very relationship-driven economy, as I said, versus US, which I'm seeing is more value-oriented, value-driven economy. That's one cultural difference that I have noticed. Operationally, I see that, there's this lot of hustling in India, just given the growing economy, ever evolving economy that India is
Okay.
currently in. There's a lot of
Mm.
hustling attitude that is required to kind of navigate through. While
Hmm.
US, I feel, is a very process-oriented economy just by the nature of it.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think these two are very starking differences that at least I have observed, navigating between the two economies.
Mm. Interesting. Interesting. And I understand that you have a fairly large team based in India. 15 people
Yeah, yeah.
is what I think you mentioned before.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
just sort of 15, yeah.
for a lot of US based founders who are obviously paying US or local labor rates, like that would
Hmm.
probably feel like quite a large team, especially
Oh,
when you're
yes.
relatively early on. How do you kind of keep track of that from over here, and how do you get confidence that your team is actually creating value from day to day or month to month?
So Nate, I think as a founder, you can relate, right? It's working remotely, of course, it does create that tension around you that how will you be able to manage the team, and how will you
Mm.
ensure that the team is working through to the right purpose and making things which is actually driving value, right? Doing things which is
Hmm.
actually driving value. So same as a founder, I also felt so. But what I realized that with the right side set of communication if we give to the team, and very clear communication if we give to the team, and
Hmm.
also the processes if we set the right processes, this really kind of helps the team to move in a right direction.
Hmm.
So clear communication, right processes, and then the review. So
Hmm.
these three elements really has helped me navigate this. Because the team feels empowered, the team can run the show. It is just me, I really help them when they're blocked somewhere to kind of help them unblock and move ahead. So that
Hmm.
pretty much is my job. But yeah, communication I felt is the key in all these.
Interesting. Okay, cool. And with so many different priorities, I mean, you're managing a team in India, you're trying to figure out how to grow in the US, you've got Amazon, you've got, your own e-com site. One of the things that I can distinctly remember about being a founder is that on any given day, I would typically have 10 or 20 times more priorities and things to do than I actually had time to be able to do. How do you navigate that, and how do you decide what's important when there isn't, the time or the budget to be able to do everything?
Oh, yes, totally echo with you. I think it's all the balls juggling in the air, and then you'll have to see which one to kind of catch, right? Very difficult. In the initial days, I struggled a lot, to be honest. And
Mm.
even I was thinking, how to do. I still struggle a lot with
Hmm.
setting up the right priorities. But two things, if I look back, has really helped. One, given I come from Amazon,
Hmm.
I have really learned the art of process management, and I'm a big hustler. Okay, just I
Hmm.
think that runs in me as
Okay.
a DNA. But
Yeah.
I had to undo that, unlearn that hustling part as we grew to become more process oriented. And
Okay.
that kind of comes from my Amazon experience, which has really helped me, one, to put things in process, and then kind of, take a back a step and kind of delegate that task to someone else. That is one. The
Okay.
second bit that has really helped me is that I don't know if have you ever read this book, Bullet Journal?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I highly recommend this book. So this is by, I
Okay.
think, Ryder Carroll.
Hmm.
This book really changed my perspective on the prioritization. So it has a
Interesting.
very
Okay.
beautiful way of basically setting up the goals for say 5 years, two
Hmm.
years, 1 year, and so you work backwards in the timeline. You see, you
Mm.
have to set your goal for say 1 year, where you
Hmm.
look yourself 1 year down the line, and then you kind of break it into different parts. So you then
Hmm.
go to 6 months, 3 months. So you decide what is adding value, and it kind of really answers and gives you the right priority set that you should follow. So
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
been doing this for, I would say, 1.5 years now. This bullet journaling method has really helped me in the prioritization. So yeah, I would
Hmm.
highly recommend that.
Interesting. I'd love to learn a little bit more about this Amazon process, stuff that you learned there. Can you give me some examples of how, you as an ex-Amazon
Mm-hmm.
employee may have approached certain, tasks or problems or situations that a CPG or ecom founder would encounter? Like, how would you approach that differently versus, how would you do it? Have you never worked at Amazon if you were lacking that experience, let's say?
I can't imagine myself, to be honest, if I hadn't worked in Amazon. I would
Mm,
just be hustling around, but Amazon really taught me the art of process management. And when it comes to that, a couple of examples that I can give you is the regular check-ins. Amazon has this
okay.
beautiful way of weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, and it's a very uh, document driven company where you have to write everything. So very writing driven, I would say. Everything that you kind of think of, you write it down, and then it gives you that clarity how to move ahead. So
Hmm.
that bit, if you have an idea, you would write it down, you would think, you will break it down into different pieces, you'll break it down into a project plan, into different sub areas. So that,
Hmm.
just Excel and a Word doc, that itself is required, nothing more, no fancy tools. But
Right, right.
that really helps you understand how to do, which is that first task you need to crack in order to move to your bigger goal.
Hmm.
So that bit, and then the weekly check-ins, how do you kind of keep a track of your business at a weekly level, at a monthly
Mm,
level, even, planning at, say, a quarterly or a yearly level. So again, ties back to the bullet journaling method, also very similar, but
mm.
these two have really helped me, kind of manage it through. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I appreciate the explanation there. So, obviously, going from a stable paycheck at somewhere like Amazon into the world of startups has, I presume, had a pretty big impact on both the stability and probably the magnitude of your paycheck. Can you tell me
Oh.
a little bit about how your relationship with finances and money has evolved as you've been on this journey?
Oh, this is a very good question. Okay. I think Nate, you would also relate, right? You're one of the fractional CFOs, and
Hmm.
I would see that you would see other founders doing that. But having said that, it's so very different when you're working versus when
Hmm.
you're running a company.
Hmm.
When
Hmm.
you're working in a job, there's a fixed income that comes to your bank account every month or at certain frequency. So there's, X amount that comes, Y is what you spend, and then X minus Y is what you save. And, that
Yep.
pretty much is. So there's a lot of planning, probability, where you would be probably, 1 year down the line, 2 year down the line. When it comes to entrepreneurship, I think there is so much variability and sometimes even a question mark. So
Yeah.
it's not just about money. It is, I think, about cash flow at the end of it, because you have to
Mm.
have that continuous churn of cash flow, which is needed to maybe make that working capital, manage the expenses of the employees or suppliers or anything for that matter, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, it's more of cash flow. And another thing that I've noticed, when I was in job, you kind of relate your self-worth with your net worth most of the
Hmm.
time.
Hmm. Hmm.
But when you come to entrepreneurship, you really cannot do that. It
Yeah.
is, these are two different things completely. So
Is
yeah.
that I mean, I don't mean to pry here. Is that because the net worth took a hit and you didn't want to see your self worth, go down with it? I mean, is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Yeah.
Yes, it will, right? Because, I mean, especially in a bootstrapped company, because you are
Yeah.
investing and then that
Hmm.
investment reaps your fruits somewhere down the line. It will take
Hmm.
some time to give you that
Hmm.
ROI. So, and
Hmm.
there are a lot of days when you will literally be picking yourself up because things are not going right. So it
Hmm.
is like that sine curve. And if every time you start calculating your self-worth with the net worth in the bank
Hmm.
or overall net worth, I don't think it will help you grow in the longer run.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. So
I mean, it
you're
has
built.
happened to you as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I went from a fairly stable and fairly substantial paycheck in investment banking to go and start an e-commerce business. And, I was getting paid nothing for the first couple of years. Even by the time that we were able to start paying ourselves a salary, like, it was not predictable. It was not stable. There were times a year when we needed to put that money into inventory. And, if you got a choice between, hey, stocking up for Christmas and getting the inventory you need, or paying yourself, the salary that you'd like to have, then yeah, it becomes discretionary, which is tough, definitely, really hard.
So
So
yes.
I get it. I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
So you're building a business in, the child care or child toys sector.
right.
And I guess this category one might describe as a lot of people are making fairly emotional decisions. People are often willing to pay a lot and, sort out very intentional products when they're purchasing for their kids. What are some of the pressures that creates for you that other people may not appreciate, or may not be obvious to us?
Well, this industry is so very different from the other industry because think of it, a child is one of the most treasured part of a parent's world. So
Mm-hmm.
you are creating for kids and
Mm-hmm.
the childhood as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one, you have to ensure that the products are really safe for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So rigorous lab testing. Secondly, you have to ensure that the products are developmentally appropriate for the kids because kids
Mm-hmm.
are going through a rapid phase of brain development, rapid phase of overall development. Like 90% of the brain development of a kid happens by the age of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So very important as to what you are developing, how you're really adding value. And also you have to create something, which helps in making that childhood even better,
Mm-hmm.
making right like beautiful memories along the childhood for parents and kids both. So that is one, a lot of pressure as a founder or someone who's creating the products for kids to ensure that it kind of fits in all these buckets.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing as an industry that I've observed is, most industries have these repeat users. Like if you are having, say, a soap business or maybe a hair care business, something like that, right? You
Mm-hmm.
will have repeat customers, most of them coming to you because they're using that product on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
think of a child is evolving, a child is growing
Yeah.
continuously.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so are the child's needs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are creating something, say, for an age group of 0 to 1 year or a 6 month old, that may not be appropriate for, say, a 2 year old. So
Mm-hmm.
your customer retention changes versus,
Mm-hmm.
what other industries would see.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a company, how do you sail through or what do you do? It depends on your company's strategy, but it's very different from other companies, is what I've observed, especially other
Interesting.
industries.
Interesting. Interesting. So it actually raises a really interesting question from an e-commerce financial math perspective, which is that you have an interesting choice to make, which is that you could pursue breadth with your product strategy and try to have more products and more offers and more points at which people can enter your
Yeah.
business or become customers of your business, and make their initial purchase. The other choice that you have is that you could go deep and say, okay, I want to pursue repeat purchases with the customers that I already have. And yes, I might have a toy for a 1 year old, but then I'm going to have a toy for a 2 year old and a 3 year old and a 4 year old. And you could keep selling the same child, or, the same parent, um, different toys as the child ages. How do you think about that? And, what is the right payoff between breadth and having more products to start versus depth and trying to, maintain a longer relationship with a single customer?
So it's a very good question. How we started as a company was more to focus on the sensory toys with educational blend in it.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to first cover the sensory aspect of overall toy industry, and that
Mm-hmm.
is what our earlier focus has been till now. But
Mm-hmm.
as we are growing, of course, we will also need to cover the breadth of it, which means covering different age group of the children as well as we
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
So, strategy could change as we grow, but yeah, until now we've been following mostly uh, the sensory, the depth of the education and the sensory choice, mostly for 0 to 8 years. But
Mm.
yeah, as you grow and once you have probably covered one sector, you can definitely go to another. So it depends, founder to founder, company to company, how the company looks itself,
Mm.
and I think more of it, what's the overall purpose of the company, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, cool. So you, like me, we're both from a finance background. You spent a little bit of time at Citi and sorry, what was the other bank you were at?
I was at Morgan Stanley for a brief
Yeah,
period of
that's
time,
right.
but City is where I was for almost 3+ years. Yeah.
Got it, got it. So you had a bit of time working in the finance industry. So you know your way around spreadsheets and numbers. I
Yeah, I have to do so.
distinctly I distinctly remember an experience I had a few years back when I was mentoring at an accelerator program. And I'd be talking to these founders and, trying to help them solve whatever marketing or operational problem they had. And it would inevitably get to the point in the conversation where we would be talking about, solutions and kind of next steps. And I'd ask these founders, tell me a little bit about your finances. Like, how much can you afford? Can you afford $100 solution or a, $10,000 solution? And I just get these blank faces time and time again. And I remember thinking it was such a shame that you had these smart, capable, well-intentioned founders who were not able to get the financial and, just the mentoring help that they wanted or needed because they didn't kind of understand this language of finance. And after a bit more reflection, I came to eventually realize, and it dawned on me just how much I had taken for granted my own background in finance. Because that was, there were a lot of parts of, I'll be honest with you, there are many, many parts of being a founder and CEO that I struggled with, but finance was not one of them. And my guess is that, you may have had a similar experience. What are some of the things that you see as a founder with that finance background that you think other founders who do not have that financial background could be missing, or maybe they're getting wrong?
Well, I'm not sure on I think you're very close to working with other founders, so you will probably be able to give that perspective better. But my understanding, at least what I do, I can talk about, how I manage the finances.
Mm, sure.
Mostly what given the financial background again, I think I like to be on the top of my numbers as to
Hmm.
where it is. Uh, and as I said, right, more than anything else, what I've realized working as a founder is the
Mm,
cash flow, the working
hmm.
capital, which kind of really keeps
Yeah,
you on your toes. So
totally.
those things and I've started really appreciating it, that how much of it, when it really comes to deploying it and how do you use it, it's a very
Yeah,
different phenomena compared to what you study in a book, right?
right,
So
right.
it's so very different. You start appreciating the beauty of finance. So I personally am very fond of numbers, and I also ensure that I understand where we are on a weekly or a monthly basis. I'll always be looking at numbers. Sometimes, to be honest, it gets to a level where I have to stop, to be honest.
Hmm.
But yes, I like to be there. Uh, as I said, I'm not sure on the other founders, but maybe that could be something that may be a struggle with others. What do you think?
Um, phew. I encounter founders with a very wide range of relationships when it comes to finances. And I've kind of identified maybe four different phases.
Mm-hmm.
The first phase is when people are in a complete denial phase, right? They don't want to look at them. It's like, don't know, don't care. Like it tells,
Oh,
I just want to go live my life and run my business the way I am. And
oh,
I'm going to completely ignore the finances. The next phase after that is usually a bit of a phase typified by like overwhelm. So, you've tried to have a look at them but it's really confusing. You don't understand. None of it makes sense. And a lot of people, will regress back to phase one after that,
Oh,
and they won't, progress any further. Phase three, I would say, is when I would call it the intrigue phase. And in phase three, people start to, by now they've probably got a bookkeeper or accountant. They're probably on accrual rather than cash-based accounting. And they're starting to realize that there could be something interesting hidden in those numbers. They don't quite know what it is yet, or they don't know really how to, make sense of it, but
hmm.
they're starting to feel that there's something intriguing there. And then I would say the final phase, let's call it the enlightenment phase, is when you suddenly, this is when the penny drops and you start to see things that you'd never seen before. You start to make observations that you were completely unaware of. And at this phase, some of these observations and things we can get out of our finances can start to have a material impact on the strategy or the direction of the business. Like I sometimes work with founders and I'll say, hey, how you thought it was great that you're spending all this money on Amazon or, wholesale or whatever. I hate to break it to you, but you're actually losing money there. And I think you should be investing your time and effort here instead. So let's kind of change gears a little bit because this looks much more promising if you go down this path. Um, yeah, I guess
Oh, it's interesting,
I
right?
yeah I encounter people right along that spectrum.
Yeah. And does it depend on like the stage of the business you are in, or have you seen it across different stages as well?
It totally depends on the stage. I mean, earlier stage founders are really just need to worry about product market fit, right? Like early on, it's about selling and product market fit. And frankly, until you've figured that out, it doesn't really matter what the finances say. And investing in someone, like a fractional CFO like me, or even expensive bookkeeping is a bit of a waste of time. But
True.
typically, what will happen after a couple of years of figuring out how to sell and figuring out product market fit is that people will start to make some traction, and it's like, okay, this is starting to work. And then
Hmm.
they'll go find a bookkeeper or an accountant and go, oh my God, this is embarrassing. Look at this great big mess I have. Can you help me clean up the last year or two worth of numbers? Because, oh yeah, by the way, I need to file some tax returns. And so that'll be the next step.
Hmm.
And I guess where I most commonly cross paths with founders is after they've been at this for a few years. They've got, a little bit of experience under their belt, but they've started to observe that there's a poor correlation between the time, effort, or, mental energy that they're investing and their bank balance or their
Mm.
profitability. It's like, why am I working so hard but not getting paid? Why am I putting all these hours in, working weekends, blah, 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 but my bank balance stays the same? It's not going up. And it's usually at, around that time when people come to realize that there's some sort of problem with the financial math and they're not getting the financial outcomes that they'd expected, that they will come and find someone like me.
Interesting. That's good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of founders, at least I know, struggle with this kind, right? Where the struggling is to, because everyone is kind of putting the energy out there, but yeah, when it comes to getting that bank balance, yes. So yeah, good,
Yeah.
Nate. I think you're doing a great job helping the founders like this.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's enjoyable work. It's enjoyable work. But listen, you were talking about cash flow management earlier and working capital.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest consumers of cash and a critical part of, working capital in these sort of businesses is obviously inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Inventory is expensive
Oh,
and,
yes.
if not managed correctly, it can move slowly and tie up a lot of your resources. I understand you had a bit of a fairly memorable event a few years ago with a large chunk of your
Oh, yes. Oh,
inventory.
yes. Oh, yes.
Talk me through what happened and how
No.
you navigated out of that.
Whoa. So it was one of the nightmares, was one of the most dreaded night for me.
Hmm.
We were sleeping, and suddenly, I think around 2 a.m., the fire alarms start ringing. all of a sudden. And we were like, what happened? And I remember we were on the ninth floor in an
Mm-hmm.
apartment, and we were like, okay, first we kind of be quiet, and then, suddenly went out, and it's like raining cats and dogs, and like, what's happened really? And then we hear, everyone just going down the stairs, and then, the moment we went down, we saw that our entire basement was flooded up till the knee level. Can you even imagine?
Mm.
I mean, have you seen any flood situation ever?
I have, yes, not in my own basement, thank God, but um, yeah.
You've seen. So, I mean, think of it, that flood in your basement, right? And we
Mm.
were in the middle of a movement. We were moving our inventory from one place to another, and we
Mm-hmm.
had kept some of my inventory in my parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
which was in the basement effectively.
Yeah.
So I went down the stairs quickly when I heard
Mm.
this, and I was in knee-deep water. It was dark all around, and my inventory was floating there.
Mm. My
And
God.
it was like, yeah, it was very initial year, and I was literally picking up things from there and trying to get that up on ninth floor, how much ever I
Yeah.
could pick up. And, my husband and and we were doing that. And oh my God, I don't even want to
Mm.
remember that. But it was, I would say, like real and nightmare. One of the dreadest nights that I've ever had. I would never want it
Mm.
again in my life. And the worst part was that you obviously I couldn't save any of it if you think
Mm-hmm.
of it, because the water was already there for 2 hours, 3 hours there, and it was
Mm.
raining. And by the time we got up, and those were many cardboard boxes and packaging and all those things, which really
Mm-hmm.
got destroyed and damaged. So we couldn't really use them. And I had one of my pop-ups 2 days later in a
Mm.
different city, and I had to also prepare for that. So yeah, that was the event, and it was, I think, 6 months or 8 months. I had started the business, and that was the
Mm.
timeline. And you can imagine, how vulnerable as a founder you are, and you just got out of a job. It's like, oh, nice, you
Mm.
you were in a very nice, good environment, and then suddenly you are in this. Like, what are you doing, really?
Yeah. It's particularly brutal. I'm not sure about your experience, but when you think about things like that in the context of, what it represented in terms of your previous salary, like you're looking at this inventory and to, anyone else it might be, hey, just a bunch of random products in boxes. But to you as the founder, it's like, oh my God, that was like, however many months worth of my previous salary, my whole job. Like I know how much work it takes to build that stuff and, how much
Totally.
it's worth. It's strange how emotionally attached you can become to your
Oh,
inventory as
true.
a founder. So going through an experience like that, which must have been, absolutely devastating.
Oh,
How
totally.
how do you pull yourself together and, show up the next day and lead and, be the manager, CEO, founder that your team needs you to be?
Oh, it's a very difficult moment.
Mm.
As a founder, I think what I've learned is that the biggest art and the biggest thing you can do is to pick yourself up when absolutely no one is watching you, no one is clapping for
Mm.
you.
Interesting.
And yeah, that's where you gather that courage and still run the
Mm-hmm.
show. So I
Yeah.
had my team waiting for me. I had the set of customers who I had promised I'll be there for my pop-up.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my little one watching me amidst all these
Oh, wow.
chaos.
Yeah.
Right. I think that itself was sufficient. And I had a purpose more than anything else. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing this business for a purpose, for my passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
To really bring that peace to the parents. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that itself was sufficient, Nate. There was nothing more
Mm.
uh, that gave me the courage to pick myself up, to gather
Mhm.
that courage and move on and run it. It's
Mm.
okay. I've
Hmm.
lost it, but yeah, I'll make it again. And that's the strength.
Interesting. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then if this business and the product wasn't so, purposeful and purposefully, motivated for you, like for example, you were just selling some, meaningless widget that you didn't really care less about, do you think you would have been able to recover the same way?
I don't think so. Really don't think so. And
Mm.
I had always heard, uh, I'd read also in books that the business should be based on purpose and your
Hmm.
passion.
Hmm.
And I had always thought that, it's just like that they talk about
Mm.
it, to make it look fancy and so on. But
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
me, I have lived this. And these were the moments where all these things come to test.
Yeah.
Where, if you don't have the purpose, if you don't have that passion,
Mm.
you're right. It's very difficult to run it again because it's very easy to give up.
Hmm.
You can always say that, I can go back to the job. I can do that again. Why am I really doing this? I mean, that question
Mm.
does pop up. I'm sure, as a founder, you would have witnessed this as well in many phases that, that why
Hmm.
question when that pops up in your mind and in situations like this, when you're going through a chaos,
Hmm. Hmm.
then the purpose hits you, the passion
Yeah.
hits you.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Um, I guess what I'm hearing is that, that purpose is a fuel, it's a fire, it's a source of energy, and, it keeps you
Certainly.
going where without it you would have run into a wall and probably given up a lot earlier. Is there any other notable obstacles or impediments in your journey that you feel like you have been able to move through because of that sense of purpose and the mission that you've had?
I mean, I think it's about evolving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
As a founder, I felt I started knowing myself more. So it's a very self-reflection journey, is what
Mm.
I found as, in these 4 years, I think I've rediscovered myself and
Mm.
done a lot of things to kind of build myself in a better way, in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
It could be mental strength, it could be physical strength, uh,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, how do
Mm-hmm.
you move forward? I think all these areas is something that I have particularly worked on as a
Mm-hmm.
founder, as a human being in the
Mm-hmm.
last 4 years. So yeah, that
Yeah.
is something I would say.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship and being a founder is definitely going to force you into a different and accelerated personal journey. I'd love to double click on that.
Hmm.
How much of this evolution or transition that you just
Hmm.
mentioned,
Hmm.
how much of that do you think was stuff that you were forced to do? And, the reality of entrepreneurship just slapped you in your face and said, hey, Khushboo, like you need to change because the way you've been operating historically is just not working. So wake up and, evolve. Versus how much of it do you think you've been proactive about? Things where maybe you've discovered things or seen things or had a change of perspective and you've realized, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to do things differently.
Whoa. Well, I'll be brutally honest. I think
Mm.
it slaps you. It does
It
slap
slaps you
you.
in the face. Yeah.
Yeah, and you realize that, uh, uh, you know, in this society, we kind of very glorify that, you keep working nonstop, you don't care about what
Mm.
you're eating, you don't care about your health, how much you're sleeping,
Hmm.
and all those things, and it's so glorified all
Yeah.
across. And then the reality slaps you, like,
Yeah.
hey, yes,
Mm.
you can do it for a couple of days, maybe you can
Yep.
stretch it for months, but can you
Yep.
really do it for years and still run the show? Like healthy,
Hmm.
mentally
Yep.
and physically healthy, because the kind of decisions you have to take, the kind of things you have to do, both physically and mentally, right? You
Hmm.
have to be sound enough to do that. And
Hmm.
in order to do that, you have to kind of focus on it. You
Mm,
have to focus on your physical regime as to what you're doing to keep yourself physically healthy. Then you have to
mm-hmm,
also focus on how can you take up more, you know, are you mentally resilient enough?
mm,
So those things, when it comes to you, you have to, work on it. So for me, it was practically, I would say, a little slap only,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
more than, kind of being curious and learning.
Yeah.
It was more of like, hey, listen, you have to understand, you have to
Mm,
become more mentally resilient. Otherwise, how will you navigate?
yeah.
And yeah, I find it very good now that I look back in the hindsight.
Mm,
Yes, it all sounds good. I think I'm a better human being than I was, probably 4 years back.
mm. Interesting. Interesting. So I have another question for you. How long have you been in the US now?
Hmm.
It's a couple of years, is that right?
Almost here, 2 years, yeah.
Okay, almost 2 years. Okay, so you spent enough time here to get to know and understand a little bit about US culture. By comparison, I'm sure there's many things where Indian culture is very, very different. And I mean, I'm thinking about your relation. You mentioned earlier, being very relationship based, and I think Indian culture is very different in terms of
Hmm.
their relationship with things like spirituality. Are there any aspects of Indian culture or Indian, ways of doing
Hmm.
business or entrepreneurship that you think maybe American entrepreneurs could learn from? Are there aspects of the way that you did things in India that um, could be valuable to other founders in other parts of the world?
I think just thinking aloud, so uh, two things. So one, I think you have to be in India. We prefer, as I said, a very human touch to things.
Mm-hmm.
So when it talk when it comes to about doing any business with, say, Indian suppliers or Indian customers, right? We
Mm-hmm.
focus on that relationship. How are you really delivering the value through by creating
Mm-hmm.
that beautiful bond and relationship?
Mm-hmm.
So that bit I do carry here as well. And but I think people are same everywhere. Everyone values that. As
Mm-hmm.
everyone values a warm smile. Everyone values that warm conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that aspect, just because we've been doing it that way, if we carry it over here as well, I think people do like it. That's what I've
Mm-hmm.
observed.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, since you talked about the spirituality, as in India, we do have a lot of focus on all these things, the
Mm-hmm.
spirituality and, taking care of your mental health as well. Uh, I personally, while I'm not so religious, I do focus on spirituality a lot. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
gives me mental strength and recentering yourself amidst the
Mm-hmm.
chaos. So, literally, I have found comfort in chaos, and that is not
Mm-hmm.
by just being myself, but by, kind of doing that focus, you can say chanting, meditation, whatever works for anyone. But as a
Mm-hmm.
founder, I feel you should always have something to anchor on. It
Mm-hmm.
really helps, and you could be a founder anywhere for that reason. And but there should be something that you could anchor on. It could be a belief,
Mm-hmm.
conviction, whatever you might want to say. There could be different terms to it, but it
Mm-hmm.
helps you power through. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship and being a founder is a roller coaster. It's, I suspect, probably one of the hardest things that you can do professionally, at least. There's often, people deal with burnout, people deal with, mental health struggles,
Oh
sometimes
yes.
loneliness. I don't know, whether you've encountered any of that stuff, but what are some of the things that you have perhaps had to unlearn in order to be a successful founder?
Well, apart from what I talked about, right, just that taking care of your both physical and mental health and don't take it for granted. I think
Mm-hmm.
one another thing probably I would like to add is don't try to do it all. I tried that in my initial years, I'll do everything by myself and then, kind of go
Mm,
ahead. It it really doesn't help.
hmm.
You have to set up processes, you have to mature things and kind of give it to someone else to lead through. So that
Yeah.
really helps. You have to start trusting folks around you to help you. So create a support system in whatever
Hmm.
way you want to, in terms of your team, in terms of whoever can cheer for your business, either in the sidelines or however. And
Mm,
yeah, I think someone to help you walk through that difficult journey.
mm. Totally. Totally. Okay, very interesting. You've given me a lot to think about here, Khushboo. A lot to ponder. I have really appreciated the conversation. You've, yeah, taught me a lot about cultural differences. You've taught me about systems and processes and the value of using them, and how you've applied what you learned at Amazon to your role as a founder here. And I think your cultural perspective on entrepreneurship is really interesting as well. You dropped a number of things here, kind of comparing and contrasting, the Indian or the Eastern view versus the Western view, which have been really interesting to talk about. So I appreciate it.
Thank you
Um,
so much. I learned a lot from you as well. I mean, the kind of four phases, I'm also thinking upon it, and probably,
yeah.
certain point I was also thinking, yeah, maybe I was in those phases as well, after doing everything.
Yes. Well, I hope you're making progress there. But
Yeah.
listen, if anyone would like to learn more about you or get in touch, I'm going to include some of these links in the show notes below. But is there anywhere particular people should go to get in touch or learn more about you?
Yeah, so our products, the educational sensory products for kids, they are
Mm-hmm.
available on our website, which is www.lattooland.com.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can spell it out on on the screen. And they can also buy it on Amazon, either in
Mm-hmm.
US or India, wherever they want, or our
Mm-hmm.
website, whatever works. And yeah, if they want to reach out to me, they can either reach out to me on LinkedIn or my email ID, khushbu@lattooland.com. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you again, Khushbu. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and
Oh,
we'll be in
thank you
touch.
so much. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Nate, for having me over. It was a beautiful conversation. A lot of things even I thought upon, just by talking to you. So great.
Fantastic, fantastic.